M. Week update, and we are making a couple of key reversals from yesterday based on ownership drift and matchup context. Starting at quarterback, where we are moving back to Justin Herbert at 6,800 with a dash rank of 100 against the Titans, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 21 with 22 fantasy points per game, and recent 26, 33, and 19, and only about 4% owned, which is the leverage we wanted but did not have yesterday when we shifted to Daniel Jones, and the projection is reliable with his long run of starts, while national coverage continues to underscore the franchise's trust in Herbert since his debut year per, essentially, sports profile of his career and contract. And any narrative noise like the Madison Beer Curse headline is just that, noise. So we are anchoring Herbert for ceiling at low ownership. At running back, we are adding Christian McCaffrey at 8,800 with a dash rank of 100 against the Giants, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 25 with 25 fantasy points per game, and recent 10, 42, and 24, carrying about 27% ownership, and we are fine eating that because his dual path to points on the ground and through the air raises the floor and ceiling in soft matchups, and the weekly fantasy columns highlighting McCaffrey as on deck for another memorable week. Back up the play. We are keeping our exposure to Jamar Chase at 8,400 with a dash rank of 100 against the Bears, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 21 with 23 fantasy points per game, and recent 21, 41, and 25 at roughly 18% owned, and nothing has changed from yesterday's thesis, with DFS Pro coverage from Mike McClure still touting Chase, and the recent note that he matched a Jimmy Smith-level accomplishment, reinforcing the ceiling, while any lingering concern from that earlier season dud the Bengals had is outweighed by this favorable opponent rank. Tight end is a change from yesterday's Tucker Kraft, back to Tyler Warren at 5,500 with a dash rank of 100 against the Steelers, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 14 with 14 fantasy points per game, and recent 9, 17, and 18 at about 7% owned, and the switch is driven by matchup plus price efficiency and touchdown equity, with the Sportsline model flagging Warren in its anytime TD pool and local reporting around Jonathan Taylor's public push to keep the rookie locked in supporting continued usage in the red zone. Flex stays consistent with our stance on DeAndre Swift at 6,100 with a dash rank of 100 against the Bengals, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 14 with 17 fantasy points per game, and recent 15, 24, and 8 at roughly 4% owned. And while he is currently listed as questionable, we will monitor. But the leverage and passing game role keep him in our builds, and the season-over-season baseline where he has finished RB23, or better every year per national fantasy coverage, gives us confidence in the touch count against this soft opponent rank. Defense is a pivot from yesterday's Chargers to the Rams at 3,900 with a dash rank of 100 versus the Saints, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 8 with recent 11, 17, and 1 at about 10% owned. And the reason is simple. We are capturing a defense that has produced disruptive plays the last 2 weeks with a comparable projection and slightly more forgiving ownership. And it also decorrelates our Herbert builds from yesterday's setup. Quick value notes if you are building multiple lineups. Cameron Ward at 4,500 against the Chargers, who have a tough defense overall, projected for 12 with recent 14, 12, and 10, virtually 0% owned, is strictly a large field dart with volatility. And the rookie narrative is well documented from the Madden 71 rating discourse to the training camp coverage. But this is a game theory salary release only. Kyle Monangai at 4,600 against the Bengals, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 7 with recent 2, 17, and 2 at about 7% owned, can serve as contingency if Swift's status turns south. And he just had his welcome to the NFL moment per the recent write-up, so the role can grow. Juwan Jennings at 4,300 against the Giants, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 11 with recent 9, 7, and 2 at about 10% owned, is a viable salary saver with spike week history. And while the team signed Kendrick Bourne after Jennings' earlier shoulder issue, and there was that sideline exchange with Kyle Shanahan, per reports, his high leverage usage in big spots is real. Colston Loveland at 3,300 against the Bengals, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 7 with recent 7, 5, and 2 at about 9% owned, is a reasonable punt if you need savings off Warren, and the controversial OPI call last week underscores he is involved. Sky Y. Moore at 3,000 against the Giants, who have one of the worst defenses overall, projected for 1 with minimal recent production at about 1% owned, is a true punt after the trade to San Francisco, and only belongs in large field tournaments. Falcons defense at 2,500 against the Patriots, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, projected for 6 with recent 0, 4, and 9 at about 7% owned. Is your salary saver alternative if you are spending up elsewhere? Recap of the changes from yesterday and why. We reversed yesterday's move off Justin Herbert and are back on him due to sub 5% ownership and a matchup with one of the worst defenses overall, while salary is now handled by value options at TE and WR. We added Christian McCaffrey as a premium pay-up because the opponent rank screams efficiency and his projection leads the slate. We kept Ja'Marr Chase because the matchup and elite ceiling remain intact with supportive DFS and milestone news. We pivoted back to Tyler Warren at tight end for matchup, red zone equity, and price, aided by positive touchdown signals in national models. We kept DeAndre Swift exposure but slid him to flex to balance salary while noting his questionable tag to be monitored. We moved defense to the Rams for recent pressure production and cleaner portfolio correlation with our other positions. That is the update and the why behind every move. And we will be back if late news shifts, rolls, or ownership before lock.